Howdy on Molex Lives. I think it's time to play a little 7 Days to Die. Alright, we're like 2 game hours out from Horde night. I don't know if that's enough time to run out and do this quest or not. I think we'll go see, though. I mean, the worst we gotta do is run back here, right? That's the worst that happens. If we can ever leave. There we go. So, as you can tell, maybe, from my voice, I got a cold. It's COVID. It's annoying. First time I've gotten it. I've been pretty good at avoiding it so far. And, everybody was, we got the version that comes across as normal head cold, I guess you'd say. Although everybody here is having different symptoms, so take with it what you will. I have a annoyingly achy throat. I hesitate to call it a sore throat because it doesn't feel like sore to swallow. It just feels sore, if that makes sense. And I got an occasional cough. I think I just recorded for a half hour, and I didn't cough once. And then, what, we're 2 minutes in and I've already coughed. So, you're not very open. Okay. So, yeah. I think last night was the worst with it. And today I actually feel quite a bit better. Although I feel like the sinus issues are... Well, the sinus issues were worse yesterday, and now my face hurts from sinus issues. But my cough is less today than yesterday, and my throat hurts less. So, you know, that's a plus. Everybody else keeps talking about being tired, but I haven't really felt tired from it. And they've been talking about fever and chills, but I haven't had any of that either. They've had it a bit longer than I have. My sister, well, they all went out. They all went out school shopping because last week was supposed to be the start of school. Okay, I don't know what that guy's doing, but he's part of the table now. And So when they came home, my sister was just coughing and coughing and coughing. And then I was like, "Oh, we're supposed to go to that thing on Sunday. We gonna skip that? Not go?" She's like, "No, we're going." So I'm like, "Okay, get everybody sick." And so we got to our thing, and they left about 10 minutes after we got there. And she had taken a test on Saturday, and it came back negative, which I was really shocked because, man, she was hacking and hacking. And then when she got home Sunday, after they left, I stayed. I was there, so. And then when I got home, they were like, "Oh, test came back positive." I'm like, "Oh, nice." And so then I don't know when my brother-in-law's came back positive, but he was the next one. And then the kids took it, and theirs came back negative. And then the kids took it again when they started getting more severe symptoms. And then my nephew came back positive, but I don't think my niece, the couple, 3 times they gave her one, I don't think she ever came back as positive. But man, she's just as sick as everybody else. So I don't know what the deal is with that. And then I had felt like I had again, not a sore throat, but just a slight ache, just at the top of my throat. And it's not like a real sore throat. I don't know how to describe it because I've never had a sore throat that just feels like. I can describe it. Have you ever eaten something and you tried to swallow it and it was too big and it makes your throat hurt? It kind of feels like that. Like sometimes I'll go to take a pill and it'll get hung in there, not go down, and that'll make my throat hurt. Kind of thing, or like kind of like an ice cream headache or something, but in my throat. So it's just weird because it doesn't hurt to swallow. It doesn't hurt to eat. It doesn't hurt to cough. So I don't know. Anyways, I think that's enough talking about it. I took a test on Wednesday because I wanted to see if I had it. It came back negative. I took it again on Friday because by that point my throat just felt super scratchy, and so it came back positive. So yeah, but obviously that's not that fun to talk about. I mean, to me it's interesting because this is the first time anybody in my family has tested positive for COVID. We're pretty careful, avoiding large groups. I mean, we don't like to go places anyway, so. But I'm really shocked that like my sister or my brother-in-law didn't pick it up from their work. Or the kids from school or something, right? So, because those plague bears bring everything home. But I did want to talk about something more interesting to me than COVID. I watched a video on YouTube that talked about the greatest fantasy author. Oh shoot, I was going to look up his name. I don't remember what his name is, the greatest fantasy author, the guy said, currently alive. And I was like, ooh, I love a good fantasy book. Love it. And then he mentioned authors I have read, including my favorite author. And he said this guy is way better than any of those people. And so I'm like, woo, this guy's got to be amazing to be better than my favorite author, because I read a lot. So I have a very large swath of authors to compare. And my favorite author is my favorite author because I find his books to be some of the best I've ever read. So somebody who's better than that sounds amazing. So bring it on. So I like a long story. I feel like this should be going somewhere. So I went ahead and, because I like a long story, I jumped onto... Oh, it's nighttime now. Oh. Great. I'm gonna die. Ah, dang it. I didn't realize I'd gotten nighttime. I wouldn't have jumped over there if I'd have known that. I'd have been more careful. Dang it. Well, I'm not going back to get my bike, obviously. So, the, here's the problem, though, is I probably shouldn't be at my base, right? I'm going to sit out here to shoot down the buzzards when they come. So, if they come. So, yeah. I like a long story, so I looked through the guy's list of books, and it looks like he doesn't write series, which is a negative for me. I like a long story. I like a multi-book, huge, engrossing, epic tale of good versus evil, or something along those lines, right? And so I'm like, all right, I'm still going to give this guy a chance because this guy said greatest living author for fantasy. And so I saw that he had a trilogy. And I'm like, okay, maybe he writes small groupings of books. That's fine. I can handle someone who writes trilogies. That's fine. I still prefer big, long stories of like 5 to 12 books in the series. But, I'll take a trilogy. That's fine. One of my favorite authors, Terry Brooks, he writes in trilogies for the most part. And although his book series that I read him for is got to be about 50 books or so in that series, but it's a series of smaller stories. So there's like kind of some single books to start with, the first 3. And then there's like a 4 or 5 book series after that. But then after that one, for the most part, if it's not a standalone story from a different period of time, it's mostly sets of trilogies. Anyways, but they all tell the same world. And so it's just like one big long series, even though he keeps switching who the main characters are. Which I'm fine with. But anyways, so I buy the Fionavar Tapestry trilogy. There's 3 books. I'm not done with the 3rd book. but I'm close. I think Kindle tells you how long you have left to read based on your reading speed. And so I think last night it told me I had 2 hours left in the third book. I'm over halfway done with it. So let me preface my review of the Fiona of Art Tapestry with two things. One, spoilers. But two, these were his first books he released. So there's a good possibility that he has become a better author since then. But I won't be reading any more of his books. Because my favorite author, Brandon Sanderson, his first book was really good. And I didn't even realize that I really liked his first book when I started reading some of his other books, because I didn't realize that he even wrote that book. And then when I, look at the list of books that he had, I was like, oh, wow, I really liked that book. I guess I should have paid more attention to Brandon Sanderson when I first read him. So this guy, I don't remember what his name is. Guy is actually part of his name. But Fiona of Art Tapestry, he doesn't describe anything. And I know there's some criticism for authors who describe everything. I can't believe no guys are coming. This is Horde night. Where are my enemies? Last Horde night, I had slews of vultures coming out and knocked down a bunch of my pillars and kept attacking me. And there were zombies running around all over the place down below. And I got nothing this time. Man, the Fiona of Art Tapestry. So I like Robert Jordan. He's dead. He's not writing any more books. And so my brother-in-law, one of his biggest complaints is that he describes too much. And so he always complains about how there being a whole chapter about dresses. I think there's like a 2-page spread where women characters are getting clothes for a festival or something, and they like talk about what's in the closet, and the dude, goes into great detail. Not too much detail, but some detail on what different dresses are available, and apparently that offends him. He also doesn't like the description of the feasts. And I don't know. I always thought that was fun, where he describes the different flavors and things like that, because I don't know. I feel like it gives you a sense for the culture, and I don't mind coming up with my own imagination for what something looks like. I at least need an idea of what you think it looks like as the author. So this guy doesn't care what you imagine his things look like, I guess, because he doesn't tell you ever. I will give you 2 examples from the books about how little he describes things. 3 examples. I'm sorry. I will give you 3 examples from the books. So the basic premise is, at one point in the history of this world, they believe that there's, they know, because they talk to their gods, they know there's an ultimate god called the Weaver. And so the Weaver weaves the fates of the universe. And this bad guy came from outside of fate. Now, I don't know what he was trying to do, because that would be a description. So all we know is he came and he was bad. And we know he's bad because everybody says he's bad. But we don't actually know what he was trying to accomplish. We don't know what he looked like or anything like that. All we know is he was bad. And they fought him, and he's immortal. And they cut off his hand, and then they sealed him under a mountain. And they used some kind of magic that involved ward stones. No descriptions. That's it. I mean, that in and of itself is a description of what happened, but there's no details in those descriptions. And so he has some minions called the Svart Alfar. And the only thing I can tell you about them is that some of them are little and green. I don't know how many, because at no point in the books, plural, trilogy, at no point in the book have I been given a description of what a Svart Alfar looks like. Now, there's these other creatures in the book called the Leos Alfar, which made me think that they might be dark elves, because the description of the Leos Alfar, once again, I don't think we've got an actual description of what they look like, but some of their mannerisms that are mentioned, highly graceful, in touch with the forest, sail a boat away when they reach a certain point in their life to the west, into the setting sun, to go to the special world the Weaver has made for them, right? Some description again, but no detail that matters to someone who's reading a story and trying to imagine what's happening. I don't know what the Leos Alfar look like, but given that their name ends with Alfar, I thought the Svart Alfar might be like a corruption of them. Now, here's a trick, though, is that goblins, or sometimes orcs, are potentially corrupted versions of elves, as are dark elves. But here's the thing. I only know that from things outside of this guy's writing. And I think this might be the problem that I have with his writing, is that he infers a lot of things from other writings that you can bring in if you've read those things, but if you haven't, you're not getting a description. And so in book 3, there's a scene where the Urgamox, which are another bad guy, who've only been described as large, smaller than giants, carry a big sword that can cut up to 3 people in half at a time. And they ride 6-legged beasts, which might be named sloughs. Here's the trick, though. They've got no description, and there's never been a description of sloughs beyond the fact that they have 6 legs. What? Who wrote your book, man? Why are there no descriptions of what these things look like? There might be a better description of the Urgamoches. I know they fight one pretty early in the book 1, and it might have fur, but I don't remember. But yeah, no descriptions. So the Svart Alfar, the Urgamoches, because they're bigger, grab one and throw it, because they're bored, into a bonfire. And it says, and this is the description for the book, they grabbed a Svart Alfar, one of the little green ones. that means to me that some of the Svar Alfar aren't little, and some of them aren't green. What the heck is a Svart Alfar then? And then, the other description I give. So that's two of them: the Urgamachs and the Slough. I guess I counted them as part of the Urgamachs, because they're only referenced in relation to the Urgamachs, and the Svarts. The other thing is there's a character named Tabor, and Tabor comes from a tribe. No zombies are coming out for my Horde Knight. I got a zombieless Horde Knight here. No anything is coming for me, man. I should probably fix my gun here though, because it looks like it's about dead. So Tabor comes from a tribe who bond with animals. And the way they do it is they go out and they do like this fasting thing in the woods by themselves where I can't remember if they drink something, but they go into like a spiritual vision, and then when they come out the other side, they've seen their spirit animal and it bonds with them, and so they're bonded. Honestly, I think it's just a spirit animal. Nobody else in the tribe has an actual animal with them at any point in the books so far. And I'm almost done. So, nobody else in the books, except for this kid, have an animal that comes with them. They're all bound to an animal, but only this kid gets an actual animal. And the book says, and this is the first book says, it's a creature never before seen in the world, and they give its name. But its name is gibberish, all right? Gibberish to me. It's just a name. It doesn't mean anything. I don't associate it with anything. I don't recognize it from anything. So it's just a name. And they describe it appearing in the clearing with the kid, and the description they give is, it has a horn. That's it. It has a horn. I don't know what that means. Obviously, if it has a horn, I assume unicorn. But, again, not something I took from this book. Something I know from general knowledge outside the book. It has a horn. Later, it talks with the kid, and it lets him know that it can fly, and asks if he wants to fly with it. And the kid asks if he can ride it, and they mention that it's big enough for him to ride, and that it looks like it will probably grow larger. So now I've got a creature with a horn that can fly and can grow larger than what it currently is. So I'm like, okay. So is it a unicorn now? Is it a dragon? Because, there are some dragons with a horn that can fly. Is it an insect? Because some insects have horns. I don't know. You haven't told me what this thing is. You gave me a name. You said it has a horn. It can fly. And it's big enough for the kid to ride on, but it's also going to get bigger in the future. And then a few chapters after that, because that wasn't at the same place with the horn. That was a couple chapters later when they mentioned it could fly and was big enough for the kid to ride. So a few chapters later, they finally say that it was a chestnut unicorn. I'm like, okay. All right, so this is the closest we've ever gotten in these books to a description. I mean, people in the books sometimes get a description of, like, she has red hair. He has blonde hair. Her eyes are gray, right? But not a real description that you would expect from a fantasy novel. So then, the next book, so a whole book later, they also mention that this chestnut unicorn has wings. And they mention that when it attacks, its horn changes shapes. And that's pretty much it for a description of this. Oh no, in book 3 they mentioned that its horn is silver. Or he mentions that it's silver. 3 books to find out that it's a chestnut unicorn with a silver horn and wings that the kid can ride on and it flies. Is not great for your fantasy novel. That's not how any fantasy novel I've ever read works. Use adjectives, guy. Seriously. You are not. How could you think this guy was the greatest fantasy author still alive? These books, and again, I will admit they were his first books, but as first books go, they're terrible. And I mean, I'm gonna keep going because descriptions are not the thing that ruined it for me. Fine, you want to describe what your things are? I can make up what they look like. That's fine. Nobody in the book struggles. A fantasy epic requires your people to struggle. Now, I'm not saying that bad things don't happen to people in the books, but they don't have to collect anything. There are no prophecies they have to follow. There are no legends they have to decipher. Nothing. Sure, there are some prophecies and legends in the book that are mentioned as they're completing them, but nothing that they don't have to go places to look things up. I don't understand the point of the book series. I still don't even know why the bad guy is the bad guy. In fact, there's one of his henchmen does way eviler things than the bad guy ever did. And so, like, honestly, if you've ever read Thomas Covenant by Stephen Donaldson, how do you pronounce his name? Those books are fantasy novels where a dude is pulled into another world similar to this, but I always jokingly refer to them as the most depressing books I've ever read, because everything the dude does in those books just seems like the wrong thing, and everybody gets hurt for it. And so bad things happen in these books, and so it feels kind of like that, except that no one's responsible for anything, and I don't know what the point is. So 5 people get pulled from Earth to this other world. One of them is a woman with gray eyes. She becomes a seer, and they give her all the knowledge of the world. She now knows everything there is to know. The end. She is their Google. One of the guys, which was involved in a car accident with his girlfriend, and she died, decided he wanted to die, and the king was supposed to place himself on the summer tree for 3 days, which he stole from Norse mythology. And so he does, and now he can command the gods. One of them is Guinevere from the King Arthur legends. Her name is Jennifer when she gets there, but then she remembers she's Guinevere. One of them is a basketball player who... they're all from law school together. One of them is a basketball player who ends up separated from them and with the tribes who hang out with the animals. And when he gets his hands on an axe, he's suddenly like the greatest warrior ever for no reason. Like he's never touched an axe, obviously a battle axe before in his life, but now he goes toe to toe with the bad guys with the greatest warrior of the tribe with the animals. And then the 5th one was Kevin. Kevin likes to sleep with women. That is Kevin's claim to fame in the books. And that is important because the way the story goes, nobody has to do anything. Like the woman didn't, the seer, she didn't have to figure anything out. She didn't have to seek a mentor. She didn't come down with any strange disease or headaches or anything like that. No. When she showed up, the old seer showed up and said, "You're coming with me," and then took her and gave her all the knowledge. That was it. There was no struggle. They just gave it to her. So now she knows what to do, when to do it. Paul, I guess, had the most comprehensive story in the books up until he hung on the summer tree for 3 days, and then when he came out, he can command the gods. But this book's idea of struggle, this story's idea of struggle, is they needed to go to this island, okay? And this island is, you can't sail there in winter, and the island is where they're casting the spell that is making everything winter. So they can't get there. And so they have a festival where it's everybody wants to have sex at this festival. Like it's not a choice thing necessarily. They all have the urges. And Kevin, who is known for being a ladies' man, for some reason doesn't feel anything. At no point in this book series have they mentioned anything about this up until this specific chapter. They can't get to this island because it's winter. So how will they resolve this? Well, during the Urges Festival, Kevin doesn't feel them, and he finds that odd. Someone mentioned that Kevin would have to go to this place. And so Kevin thinks, well, since everybody else is busy, I'm just going to go to this place. And when he gets there, he finds a goddess, and then she kills him. And before she kills him, she's like, say your name. And so he says a different name than Kevin, and then he dies. And he is apparently the reincarnation of the firstborn who will bring about spring. And so when he is sacrificed, which hasn't been done in 1,200 years, to this goddess, she brings about spring. And so now they can sail to the island. So before they go to the island, there is a story about the island, not in the book really. They just mentioned that the greatest wizard that ever lived tried to go there and never returned. And so Paul's like, I'm going to call the sea god and tell him he has to keep us safe. And the sea god says, I don't have to listen to you because I only have to listen to you while you're on land. Once you're in the ocean, I don't have to listen to you because there I'm God. And Paul goes, all right, we'll see. And so then they go out in the ocean, and and a giant monster comes out to attack them before they get to the island. And they describe the monster as having a horn. And this is important. And so the prince runs out onto the monster because it's huge. It's like, when it come up out of the water, it didn't obviously come all the way up out of the water, but it was taller than the mast of the ship out of the water. And so the prince ran up on its head and pulled its horn from between its eyes. And by horn, they mean a two-handed staff that was jammed into its forehead. Who would describe that as a horn? That'd be like if you had a thorn or a splinter stuck in your forehead, and you're like, oh man, look at my new horn. It's not a horn. And so that staff, of course, never mentioned before, is the original wizard's staff, which gives the wizard they have with them more power. Because, never mentioned before, but they're going to need it coming up. And so Paul tells the sea god to kill the monster, and the sea god's like, I don't have to listen to you. And so then a shaman from the animal tribe, who's never spoken to Paul before, telepathically contacts Paul at that point and goes, hey, you should send your command through me, and then that way I'm on the land and he'll have to listen. And so that's what they do. And so the Sea Lord kills the giant monster. This monster was so inconsequential that every single person that went with them returned. They get on the island. I forgot to mention, by that point, they had summoned King Arthur, and King Arthur now travels with them. And so they all go marching into this bad guy stronghold, where a wizard is draining the life from and resurrecting Svark bad guys all over and over, so he has enough power to make it winter. And he also sent a plague that rains out of the sky. All the bad guys on the island, and there's a lot of them, are so enthralled with the ritual that they don't even look up when the good guys walk in. And they could have just walked up to the bad guy who was casting the ritual, but King Arthur shouted out a challenge. And so he turned, and then the wizard shoots him with the staff, and it doesn't kill him, but almost. And so then Paul runs over and helps the wizard by hold. Okay, so wizards in this book, they have to bond with a person as the source of their power. And so Paul helps the source of the wizard's power stand up. That's it. Just helps him stand up. And then the wizard shoots the bad wizard again, who's got the power of hundreds of sources. And the second blast from the original mage's staff kills him. That's it. There's no fight. They just shoot him twice with a beam out of the end of this staff, and the fight's over. And then they sail home. Every part of this book is like this. There's no struggle. Nobody struggles to do anything. Now, again, I'm not saying that bad things don't happen. Some of the characters have been killed, but not during a struggle. There's another spot. There's like 3 spots, I think, now, where they're standing there and there's just a handful of them, and they look down and there's just like this huge army of bad guys, and then that unicorn shows up and kills them all. I think the worst thing that happened was they brought the Wild Hunt out, and when they summoned the Wild Hunt later, because the Wild Hunt is random, it attacked both the good guys and the bad guys. That's the worst thing that I think that's happened in the books so far. Well, that's not true. There was a woman who was attacked and tortured and stuff. That's probably the worst thing that's happened in the books. But that was way back at the end of book 1. They kidnapped Guinevere and tortured her horrendously. And so, obviously, they mounted up an expedition to go rescue her from the bad guys. Oh, no, they didn't go to the bad guys' stronghold. Are we kidding? They cast a spell that summoned them from Earth to send them back to Earth, and it just yanked her from where she was and sent her back to Earth. Because why should we struggle to accomplish anything in this book when it's just handed to us? So, one more thing. One of the last things I read was they're standing around now that they're back from that island, and most of the army has gone out to face off against the bad guy, and they're like 4 days away from where the army's at, and so they don't know what they're going to do. At no point in this book series have they mentioned that Arthur needs his... In this book, it's a spear instead of a sword, but they don't mention that he needs his spear for anything. They don't mention who has the spear. They do mention the spear a couple of times. I can only assume it's the Spear of Longinus, because this dude does not come up with anything original. Most of his stuff is yanked from other mythologies, like it's all like Norse mythology and UK mythologies and Avalon and the elves in the West from Lord of the Rings and all that stuff. None of it is original as far as I can tell. In fact, he's known for doing historically placed fantasies, apparently. He likes to take historical events and then give them a fantasy twist, I guess. I don't know. I'm not reading any more of his stuff because these first 3 books were not good. So this ghost ship shows up, right? No one's mentioned a ghost ship any point before this. The ghost ship shows up with the original mage. He's got Arthur's spear. And so he hands Arthur his magic spear. And then they're like, we can't get to where the battle's about to take place. Can you take us, ghost ship? And the people on the ghost ship go, well... We were going to go to the afterlife now that we've been released from our torment by that monster that the sea god killed last book. We've just been wandering around for no reason ever since then. But yeah, I guess we could take you before we leave. Hop on board. And so they do. And then the ghost ship takes them to where they need to be with Arthur's magic spear that nobody even said he needed before this point. But now he's got it, so I'm sure it's going to play a big part. Because it's the worst. Like, just real quick, Terry Brooks wrote The Sword of Shannara, right? The first book in The Sword of Shannara, the entire book is about this druid who's the last of his kind, trying to find someone who can wield the Sword of Shannara. And they need it to fight the Warlock Lord. Obviously, this isn't an original idea either, but at least the content in it is pretty original. even if the main tropes are tropes. I mean, most fantasy is tropey. It's fine. Good guys need to get the thing to kill the main bad guy, right? So that's what they're after, is the Sword of Shannara. And look, we've made it to the daytime, and no zombies came. And so they go, and it takes them the entire book to go through all of these trials and solve riddles and all of this to get the sword to fight the Warlock Lord. And just like the whole thing was just this big, epic fight with armies fighting other armies and sneaking in to rescue the Elf King and just all sorts of stuff. Being hunted by demons. It was a massive undertaking. If the dude who wrote the Fionavar Tapestry had written the Sword of Shannara, it honestly would have been 3 pages. Or less. They'd have been like, the druid shows up, no description of what he looks like. He sees two teenagers fishing, and he's like, that's the one I need. And he walks up to one of the teenagers, and he goes, I need you to come on this quest. And he goes, obviously. And he goes, we must seek out the Sword of Shannara. And then the other teenager goes, I've got that in my toy chest. We have found the Sword of Shannara. Now we must confront the Elf King and the skull. No, actually, I'm right here. I'll just come with you, and we can get the sword, and I can go catch my tea time. Yeah. So yes, I do not feel that the author of the Fionavar Tapestry is the greatest fantasy author living. In fact, he might be one of the worst fantasy authors I have ever read. I need descriptions and struggle, man. Why is everybody in your book a Mary Sue, as the term goes, or a Gary Sue, I guess in this case, since most of them are male. Even the main stories that get more detail don't make any sense. I don't know what's supposed to happen in this book. I don't know what they're struggling against. I don't know what the bad guy wants. I do know what his one henchman wants. The one henchman got a 3-page section where he detailed out his plan and what he had done to cause everything bad that's happening. But yeah, nobody else has gotten any. There's no information on what's supposed to be going on in these books. Apparently, there's a 4th book that's related to it. I don't think I'm gonna get it. The dude hasn't written that many books. I expected a lot more for somebody being like the greatest fantasy author ever. And one of his criteria was they had to have a good body of work. I don't think 12 books or so would really, I mean, I guess 12 books is a lot, but like, dude, Ellie Modisette Jr. has like dozens of books, and Brandon Sanderson has dozens of books, and this dude's got like maybe 12 total. And most of them are, almost all of them, except the original 3 and maybe that 4th one, are standalone stories. And they're not even like, I don't know. I haven't read them. All I know is these first 3 are awful. So don't read them. Or do. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe COVID has driven me insane and I don't know what I'm reading. But I would like to know what a Svart Alfar looks like. Or an Urgamach. Or a Slough. Or anybody, for that matter, in the books. A Leos Alfar might be nice. We got a description of some random horses at one point. I got more description about those horses than almost anything else in the book, and they were only on like that 1 page in the book. But they were like the sun horses or whatever that the Leos Alfar rode, and there are only 8 of them left or something. I don't know. They haven't even described what the bad guy wants to do, and I'm 3 books in. There's only 3 books. All right, with that, be better than the small things, leaving the light, and I will talk to you later.